Hi, I'm Christian Vick, and during the last months, I spent my life on bots, developing them, but not only as a software developer, but also a little bit of a product manager. And the team that I work with and me, we've had a lot of learnings from that. And in this talk, I would like to share some of them. So this is the talk is about developing great bots. And I want to do that on an example, which is based on Slack and Node.js. But this is really an example, and you can expect that many of these things that I show you, or like good advices I give you, you can also adopt when you develop bots for other platforms or when you build them with other programming languages. So let's get started. What I'm going to show you is, first I'm going to explain how chat apps communicate with the clients and with the platform and how that all works together. Then second, I will give you like a small step-by-step code example, how you develop chat apps. And the third thing that I'm going to show you then is a more sophisticated Slack app. And I'm going to explain you a little bit how that plays together with the step-by-step example that I've shown you before. Then I'm going to summarize some key takeaways that we had from our past months of developing. And then in the end, we're going to have a small conclusion, and I will be open for your questions. So how do chat apps communicate? So I say chat app, first of all, and not just bot, because a bot is like more like a user that interacts with other users, while a chat app is like way more than that. It can like kind of react on / commands, as you know, like from your terminal console. And it can also react on interactions based on buttons, which we're going to see later. So how does it do it? Like the Slack clients are usually connected with the platform with its RTM API. That's the real-time messaging API. And this is like what your Slack client on your desktop or on your mobile app usually uses to communicate with the Slack platform. For some things, it will also use the web API, for example, to get a list of channels or the list of users. Then the chat app will not use this real-time messaging API. Usually it can, though. It's possible, but it's deprecated because it should use the event API to be notified about events that happen, like messages being posted to a channel, like events like a file was uploaded in a channel, interactions of the user with a message, etc., etc. And why would you not use a real-time API for it? Because it's WebSocket based. And like the event API, which just calls through webhooks, which are just simple HTTP endpoints, are easier to scale. Also, your chat app will communicate with the Slack platform through the web API, for example, to post a message or to also, like as the Slack clients do, like to retrieve a list of channels. This is the basic setup. So one thing to notice is the chat app and the Slack clients, they never like communicate directly with each other. They just communicate through the platform with each other. And this is kind of like the information hub, which will then notify the chat app about the events that it kind of registered for, that wants to be notified about. So let's look into some code. And what I'm going to show is like a small example app, which is like called Join My Event. It's going to be like about you kind of like create an event, want to invite your friends or your colleagues to it, for example, for a meetup, and other people should be able to join it, and you should be able to see a list of people who joined that event. I'm going to use for that a library called Slap. It's like one of many libraries you can use to build like Slack bots. I'm going to host all of this like on Beepboop, which is like a hosting service for bots, and I'm going to explain later a little bit like how that plays together. There's generally said like the Slap is like provided by Beepboop, but that is not, or it sounds like vendor lock-in, I know, but it's not. It's just easier. They make it easy for you to use their own hosting service with it because they provide some certain authentication contexts so that you don't have to implement the whole authentication context yourself. But it's not a vendor lock-in because you can provide your own context. And with other libraries, you have to do the same actually. So this just like mentioned, and now let's have a look how this what we do. So here's like a small space that I prepared, and I already invited and installed the app, which is like the Join My Event app. And now we can see I invited also a bot called Event Manager. So first thing I want to know is like, hey, Event Manager, can you give me some help? What you can do? I will say like, hey, how's it going? And we'll like list me like to slash commands that we can like use for interactions. And this is like the most intuitive first thing that you do, like just kind of like implementing a simple message, like mentioning the bot, and it reacts to it. So how does that look in code of code? So what we do now is a little bit like returning to the future. So I built the whole solution, like the small example, and then I created some branches and like removed the pieces so that we can now go like through step by step, return to the future, and kind of see what I actually did in these steps, so that you can like understand step by step how I actually built this app. So first thing is like what I did really like from initialization is I said like here's like a Docker file that will be used by the hosting service so that it's going to be deployed via Docker. And then there is a small bot YAML, as you can see it, where we can pass some options, like some configuration parameters that we can then use for like setting end variables on the server, environment variables. We won't use this AWS access keys, etc., but I just left it there just like so that you understand what this is like before. So, and here's now like the actual help actions. Oh, nice, a thunderstorm. So here's the actual help actions, which implement what I've just shown. So this interaction where I mentioned the bot and he's answering me. So slap is this frame, like this library that we're going to use. And like in line 4, you see like slap.message, and you see like a regex where it reacts on. And then you have the direct mention, direct message, kind of like saying, this is what I want to react on when I'm being mentioned, or I get a direct message where this regex matches, then please execute the following code. Then in line 5, you have the message.say, and you get like to see like there's the answer of the bot. So line 4 is when you think back to the diagram that I've shown you before, it's like kind of like hooking into this event API. So when an event is received from the server, from the event API, like Slack calls us, then this is going to be the decision logic which says like, this is what I want to listen for and I want to react on. And then line 5 is actually calling the web API in the end of Slack and saying, this is what I want to send into this channel so that users can read it. Then there's a little bit of registration stuff going on in the index.js. There's like, you see, it's just an express server, just as you know it, right? And what the slap just does is like registering like the routes that it needs to be called by Slack, and then like doing the magic that this slap.message in line 4 does the right reaction. And that's what it does. So that's all the code, right? Just for this, like for setting up, having it hosted, having it running, and reacting to our bot. That's it. So let's try out to create an event. So /event, Node.js meetup in May. So you see now that like I typed in this command, and the application responded to us and said like, hey, Chris created an event, and it's the Node.js meetup in May, and do you want to join this event? And what you can also see is that it provides a button, like a join button. So I don't have to write some weird command to join that, like it can just like one press and join. So, but before we do that, let's have a look again. What is the code that did that? So for that, we do a little bit of time traveling again and go a little further back into the future. And what I did now is like I created like a class event actions, which is not really necessary. I just do that for testing purposes. But what I actually did, what is really important is line 9. I implemented this onCreate function. So this onCreate function receives a message and a value. The value is the title. In this case, it's the string after the command. And the message is, again, like from slap, this object that we're going to pass in. So what you can see is we do something very simple in line 17 to 24. we create just nothing else like for our persistence. This dot events is our events persistence, where we're going to store our events so that we can use it later again when we want to list it. And from 13 to 15, you just see again like this message.say. So, but where's the registration, right? So we go down a little bit and you see like line 31, I bind this onCreate function to the /event command. And that's it. That does all the magic. And why did I separate this now? Well, because I like testing. I don't know how you are, but like I really like unit tests. And so I separate this just because I want to show you like this is not just like code that you have to test like on the Slack console. If you do it clever and separate things correctly, then you can just like do your normal chai, mocha, whatever setup and have like your unit test being implemented here. And that's important because behavior-driven tests are a little bit more tricky than you know it from web apps. Okay, let's go on. We said we have this join button, right? But I didn't like show you yet where this join button comes from. Let's travel a little bit more into the future. Because now it's like where it's getting really interesting, and this is the part where we're not like just programming a bot. That's where you say like, now we have an application. You see like line 15 to 25 are the really important lines here. And what I did is like I added an attachment to the message. And what I did in this attachment is I define in line 17 a callback ID. So this is kind of like being passed through the messages so that I later know again which action should be triggered. But I can also give the action a name, which is in line 21, the name of the button. And this is like where I can say like this is going to be the event join, and that I'm going to register later again. So I can like define this button like from line 19 to 24, and that's all. And I have a button. So the only question left is like, okay, what do I do when I press the button, right? So let's do that now. And then let's have a look at the code again. So you see like the bot said like, hey, Chris joins Node.js meetup in May. So this was put like reacted on this join event. So when I click it again, it will say, oh, you've already joined this event. So it will not like put that notification like into the chat again so that you spam people, right? So no one likes that. So let's have a look how I did that. I said like before that there is the callback ID and that there is, let's maybe start here. So I said there's the callback ID and there's the name of the button, right? So in line 63, you see I registered another thing on the slab root, the slab action event join. So this is all the thing. Like the first thing is the callback ID, the second is the name, and then I bind that again on my event actions. So let's have a look how that looks like. So it's again very simple. I just implement this interface, I have a message and I have a value. Guess what? The value is the value of the button, like we defined it before. And the message is again the slab message. So what I do just here is like I extract the user who was like triggering this action from the meta information. And then in my events persistence here, I just find my joined event because the value is the ID of my event, which I passed before into the button. So this is how it's like all passed through. And you can also see like we didn't have to preserve any server state or something here, which is really good because we want to scale this bot and like hopefully have like thousands of users on it. So it would be really stupid if we would have to like kind of keep a lot of state for these kind of things. And then it's very easy in case like the user is has already joined the event. That's like line 42 to 46. You can see I just respond to him. And that is the difference in line 48. I say like message say. So in the first case, I only respond to the user. So this message is only seen by the user and not seen by everyone in the channel. And then the second part, the 48 to 50, I said that was the first message when I remember. It's like this one here. That is like which like communicates the message into the channel. So we have like very fine granular control here about who we are actually talking with and who we give feedback. In the end of it, on line 53, we update this join event and save our changes to the database. That's all cool, but now one thing is still missing. That's listing the events. So here we have our /event list. And now we can see we get like a nice structured overview. Oh, there's a Node.js meetup in May. Let me just create another one, /event, Node.js, Stammtisch. So you can see it's not just statically tied. And you see that there's now 2 in the list, and they all both have the join button. And you can also see the one that I joined on the right has like me as an attendee. But everyone else in the channel who would join that, it would become just a list of people, so I can see who joined already. Let's go back into the code and let's see what I did to make that happen. Actually, it's more or less a repetition of the exercise that we already had at the beginning to implement the /event. I'm in the line 58 to 60. I extract the event list for the channel. So from the meta information, line 59, I know like from which channel this message was sent. So I only print out the events for this channel. And then you see I have like a big respond. And again, respond, remember, is only for the user who saw it. So like what you see here is only visible to you. So that means I don't pollute the channel with my commands, right? It's not that like I spam everyone, but I just like present it to the person who requested the information. And then I think like noticeable about all of this is that we have like from line 68 to 76, this is new, where there we have fields. And fields are nothing else than like simply like having a little bit of structure on your data, and that is like in this case like the organizers and attendees. So that is nicely structured fields, so that you can not just have like plain text, but also some nice presentation of what you want to tell the user. So that was basically it. You can, with the step-by-step guide, you can also look at it up on GitHub and like check it out and deploy it yourself. It's very easy. I'm going to share the slides also for that. And you can play with it around a little bit yourself. So let's go on. So this was the small example. All what you've seen is that was like posted on Beboop. All that was needed to set it up was the Docker container, and that's it. Let's have like look at a little bit more sophisticated Slack app, and let's like what we learned, let's try to apply it a little bit and like kind of think about what's behind that, right? So what are the projects I'm working on is Workstreams.ai, and we did like a user experience blog together with Slack on this, and I want to give you a little bit of like hints, like what you can really do, which goes way beyond like what a normal bot can do. So I switched to another Slack team. So I already prepared it a little bit. So when the Workstreams bot like joins a channel, it will give you a small greeting. So Workstreams is a task management tool. And what it should do is like, it is basically a task board that is completely integrated into your Slack, and you can like create tasks and manage them from within your Slack. But you also have a task board like really closely attached to it without having to create other accounts, etc., etc. So when I want to create a task, I do the same as I did before with the /events. I do just like a simple command /plan my holiday weekend, whatever. So this is like what you want to. It's like your first task. And what you can do from here is like you see like another interaction pattern, which is like message menus. And they give you like even more sophisticated inputs. Like, for example, being able to assign someone to a task or label it, and setting statuses and so on. And what we also do here, and this is like something nice to see, like we are creating a thread with that, and in this thread we can see all the updates on the task as well. And what you can also see on top of that thread, there is this message again, and I can like act from within my thread. So putting it ready for review, for example. That's already cool and nice, and we can do some more stuff. Like for example, like finding my tasks again and so on. And like if I have like a lot of tasks, I could search for them here, and have them like popping them up again, so I can really implement some kind of search in there. But what you can also do is you can say like, okay, this is like all happening in Slack, but at some point, like I want to have an overview of things, like of tasks, of my analytics, or whatever you're building. And the cool thing is because you're in a platform, you just have to like build up like your own user base necessarily for that. What you can do is you can just say like, oh, I just implement the auth protocol, and then I just do like requests against the web API to get like all the meta information. And that's what we actually did. And what we ended up with is like a small web app, which like is basically driven from the data within Slack. So for example, like I can go on the few discussion here, right? And I can see the thread that I was showing you from within again. So without having to duplicate like a lot of functionality that chats already do, instead we just try to build on top of it. So here I also have like the list of all my teams, of all my Slack teams, and can switch between them. And I have like the list of all the channels where the bot is active, so that I can just like switch to other boards. But this all comes from Slack. Like we don't store anything of that. Like also this user avatar comes from Slack. We don't have to do anything with that. The sign-in comes from Slack, just it. And this is like one of the cool things about these platforms. It drags users into like your app, and you can like leverage like their power to acquire users, because it's so easy for them to install your app and so easy to get started, like for small use cases, and then you can grow them into it. That's like where you notice that I'm also a product manager. Okay. So this is like where all the journey can go, because like you have to think about like the good chat platforms, like their APIs allow you everything to do with the bot that the user can do with the bot, and to see all the information when the user gives you the permissions for it, of course. And that makes it like a really, really powerful platform and a really nice wave that you can surf on as a startup. So let me share like some key takeaways before I close my talk and open for questions. First of all, libraries and hosting. I showed you a combination of Slack and people that work really well for us, and I can recommend it when you do it for Slack, but there's a lot of alternatives. The really important part is, first of all, there's libraries that are hybrid. I warn of them. I want to warn because we tried it and it didn't work for us. When you want to have like a really sophisticated user experience, then you will usually use all the platform-specific features that I showed you, the buttons, the slash commands, etc. And then the buffet doesn't work anymore for you. Then the buffet is rather in your way. So if you want to target like for good user experience, I would say go for a specific library. The other thing is when you pick like hosting, pick something that gets you started quickly, that like moves away all the things like authentication, context, and so on, and like has it already for you. But only when it doesn't mean vendor login. That's of course the other message. Like it must speed you up, but it must not block you in the future to move away from it and keep you small. The other key takeaway is from automated testing. I mentioned already, unit tests are really key because integration tests are okay. You can do that. And BDT, like behavior-driven, is really hard. The slash commands and the message interactions, like to really do that behavior-driven tested, as a user would see it, you would mean that you would have to write Selenium tests, which are on top of the web browser of the Slack app. And that is hard. Right? I mean, basically, you are like making your test infrastructure depending on a third party. That's one thing. But a nicer way to do it for the non-interactive actions is that you can also write a bot that tests your bot. But that won't work for the slash commands, and that won't work for the buttons, so you're limited right there. Integration tests, though, that is like something like the end-to-end tests that like kind of simulate the request from the Slack API and the response that you give to it, is something that you should do when your product is really stable, because you will find yourself iterating a lot on the bot interactions, and that will mean that you have to rewrite those tests over and over again. And until you learn like what are really good interaction patterns, it will take a while, and you will rewrite the bot 3 times as we did. Also because Slack releases new interactions like with messages like regularly. So, and when there's often the use case that you worked around something and you want to adopt something new very quickly. So unit tests is then like the real base of your testing, I would say, for now, when you get started, because there you keep your flexibility, just throw it away, easy to mock your stuff. And for test-driven development, of course, no other way, right? So this is our recommendations. Concentrate on unit tests and put integration tests when you're really sure, and EDT when you're really, really sure that you're not going to change your functionality anymore in the future. Other key takeaway is user interaction design. Good interaction design is really the key for users to adapt your app. So this is also why I say don't go for the hybrid solutions. Really go buy in fully into one platform and optimize it as good as you can, because this is where you get all the retention from or not. So, and this is where you create the activation of the users, where you get them like really start using your app or not. So you have to put a lot of work into it. But then when you start combining like features as we did with the threads and the interactive messages, then you can like create a really nice user experience, even though you have no really like influence on the design of the components. And to achieve that, of course, experiment, conduct user tests, and be really like drink your own champagne or eat your own dog food. So whatever you prefer. And make sure that the user experience is as good as it can be, because that will really distinguish you in the end from your competitors on the platform. Conclusion is, building chat apps is easy. Hosting chat apps is easy, but good user interaction design is a real challenge. So don't make the mistake to focus on the first two. Just focus on the third one and find solutions that make the first two easy for you. That's from my side. I'm Christian Bick. You can follow me on Twitter, or you can visit also the product that I'm currently working on, Workstreams.ai, which is developed by Airplan, project management company here in Berlin. And some of the people in the team who are here, so you can ask me and also other people questions about it. And we'll also be happy if you try it out. But besides that, I hope you learned a lot about bot development on that. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether you had to deal with it in your application, but do you have any tips regarding load balancing of these kind of bots?
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. Like, it kind of picks up what I was mentioning with the events API.
Sorry, quickly.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The question was, what about load balancing these apps? So load balancing, very easy. Don't use the RTM, right? This real time is really meant for clients and it's hard to balance. Once you are like relying on the events API, you can load balance it just as every other HTTP server. That's the very easy answer. Just have like elastic load balancer from AWS or from Google Cloud Forum, have your own HA proxies, set it up, and have your nodes behind it, and it will just like do the same as you use it for APIs, etc. Same thing. Yeah.
I would like to know what do you do with local testing if you want to make a local test on a machine, especially getting those events and see some console logs, just for the dynamic testing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me try to make that in real. So what you can do is, what we do is, we have like a local, we have our local application running, like on, in this case, like port 9090. And what we use is ngrok to proxy the requests to our local environment. So how do we do that? And this is like one of the things where it's like nice when you are relying. Oops. when you're like getting started to use something like Beboop. So what I can do here is like I can enable testing, and because I had a local ngrok running, I can now paste the ngrok URL here. Press save.
So is everybody familiar with ngrok? It's about love and tunnel, right? Yeah, it's essentially a tunnel, but just
yeah, it's a tunnel. So what I did here is I will go back to the project anyway now. So what I did here is I installed the ngrok client. And there's like just like a command which is like ngrok http 9090, and that means it will create a local tunnel to my machine. It provides the URL. That was the URL that I just copied into the Beboop, and now requests should come to my local machine. We can test that quickly. So let's go back to our project. Did you see it? Now you see in the logs here. You see, hi, how's it going? So that was it. Now I can develop, and what we actually do is we have like a node daemon running. So I can just change stuff as I go. And for example, let's say for the event actions, let's go for the help actions. It's a little bit easier to create a new event. Put like 3 exclamation marks. So my reboot or something, node daemon detects I made a change to the code. Just reverse the server. Go back. And great. It worked. So you see the 3 exclamation marks now. And that's the thing, is like this is how you can like develop very quickly. And the challenge in the beginning is not so much to write code, but to understand like, oh, this JSON must come like this and so on. So at the beginning, it's really nice to just experiment in this way. And have like your test team and iterate on it until you find an interaction that's really intuitive and good to use. At least you think. Then you show it 3 other people. You change your mind, and then you do it again. And this is a nice way to iterate on it, because you saw like all the code is not very complex, right? Like with some unit testing, you catch like most of the failures. And with that interaction, with the testing mechanism, which is really like showing you what Slack does, and not just a weird abstraction that like Hubert or something does in their testing systems. No, this is really what you want to see. It is the real output for the user, and you know how it feels, and not just how it could maybe feel. And that's a really convenient way to do it. But you can also implement that yourself, like this kind of overriding with ngrok. Just as I said, like these things come out of the box. It gets you started easily. Just go, make your experiences, and then make your choice later, right? That's like, especially when you're a startup, like time to market is more important at the beginning than these kind of details. Just like, and this is like the important thing, just don't go for things that have like vendor lock-in. They also exist in the market, and avoid them.